Welcome everybody to Town Hall 89. It's Wednesday, July 13th, 2022. We're glad to have you all here. Let's move on to the next slide here. I am John Best, CEO and founder of Best Innovation Group. And usually with me, and I don't think he's here yet. I thought he was going to make it today, but he may be here shortly, is Mike Lawson, the creator and host of CU Broadcast. Let's go to the next slide. So we also have our guest host usually, Glenn Sarvati, which I'm sure will be here in a few. He's the managing principal at 154 Advisors. Great guy. And we just got done doing a podcast about payday lending, which I can't wait to have as a subject on this show. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more. Let's talk about sponsors. So the town hall was born out of a need during the pandemic of sharing information. It's continued to this day for that very reason. And the reason we can still do it is because of these fantastic sponsors. We have CUNA Councils. I was just mentioning, I am speaking or facilitating at the upcoming CEO Council conference in Santa Fe, New Mexico, September 14th and 15th. So if you're going to be there, we would love to chat with you. Excited about that opportunity. And CUNA is just a really valuable resource for all of us in the sense of creating connections and creating opportunity for folks to get together, as well as bringing good content. And I'm thankful to be involved with their organization. Correlation is the newest platform out there for core. I know many folks on this call are part of Correlation. It's the only dedicated credit union core, so they don't have any banks, and it was built, while all of us in the last century. It's really powerful for connecting to a lot of things, and we really appreciate their support. You should check it out. Go to Correlation Inc. Member Pass is a platform that allows you to validate your members. So, if you've ever had a member, Melissa, have you ever been on a call center where it's like back and forth on trying to verify who you are before you can even get anything done?
Yeah, it's not a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's horrible. And so what Member Pass does is it makes it as easy as opening your phone and pressing, yes, it's me. But you know what else you can do, Melissa, that's really cool? So imagine that you're, well, let me tell you, imagine you're sitting at your couch in your home and you're just enjoying, watching some TV with the kids, and your phone pops up and it says, hey, XYZ, credit union has tried to verify you. But you're not on the phone with XYZ Credit Union, right?
Right.
So you just hit no. And now they're not going to go through. There is nothing else like that. So the idea that you can validate or invalidate a response is very powerful. And then you also know right away, kind of like a canary in a coal mine, that perhaps your credentials have been compromised in some way. So super valuable platform to look at, really growing fast and quickly. People are sort of expecting this sort of validation these days. So get on board, come check it out. Go to, I'm sure Melissa can put the website in there. We should have it on here. But Member Pass is a hassle-free way to do this. It's the highest level tech for security. Speaking of the highest level tech and one of the highest caliber people, CU Broadcast with Mike Lawson. If you haven't been checking out CU Broadcast, please go check it out. He's new content every day. Fantastic stuff. There is no better person. There's Lawson. Mike, you there?
I'm here.
You're here.
Sorry. Last interview ran a little long, so I apologize for my tardiness.
No worries. I'm just glad that you're here. So you can take the last one. That's great. So I don't have to talk about myself.
You were doing good, John. You were on a roll.
I'm on a roll. Yeah, I've been, just mostly drugs. I take a lot of drugs, and that helps.
Oh, have you?
It is Colorado. Yeah. So, but yeah, Mike is just, and that's him right there. It's wonderful to have him. And
that's me.
If you haven't gone to his site, he is the most informative. If it's happening, Mike knows about it. And more importantly, he's asking the right questions to the right people so that you can understand it. So check out CU Broadcast. That should be your tagline, the right questions to, hi, I'm Mike Lawson. I ask the right questions to the right people.
Ooh, at the right time.
At the right time. In the right language.
Yes, that's important too.
And you can take the last one, then we'll get moving.
Best Innovation Group. Oh my gosh. Last but not least, are you kidding me? We wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Best Innovation Group. Are you kidding me, John? You guys
Well,
are dedicated to the support and growth of credit unions and credit unions only. So really, really good stuff here from you guys. I really still enjoy your voice, the Five product that you guys put out. So
no, thank
then
you.
how you go behind the scenes and really help out credit unions with their technology needs, even some consulting as well. And then all the content you guys put out, not only are you doing the digital town hall, but you have the big cast and you got all these other, the blog. I mean, you guys are pumping out a lot of content that really is beneficial for the industry. So if you haven't checked it out by now, go to big-fintech.com. Go check it out. It's all right there.
Yep. Thank you so much, Mike. So,
You
Mike,
are welcome.
today our topic is the labor shortage. So, what is the labor shortage? Let's talk about that. Well, first,
What is it?
I want to know if anybody's experiencing it. So, I'd love for someone who's on the call to sort of pop up and say, I always pick on Alan. I don't know if he's willing to talk, but I know he would know. How is this labor shortage affecting people? There he is. Alan,
You're not
how
going to
is
let
it-
me eat lunch, huh?
No,
I was going to eat my lunch too.
I
Yeah.
tried. I didn't unmute you earlier when I invited you to the conference, but do tell, are this labor shortage, is it real? Is it what's going on? Tell us about True West. And by the way, give everybody a little background on True West just in case they don't know.
We're a 1.5 billion shop headquartered in Phoenix with operations in Arizona and in the Austin, Texas area, and a charter that allows us to operate throughout the country. And we do some indirect lending outside of our area. We've got just over 275 employees.
Awesome. So how are you? And obviously you're more than one market. So are you experiencing a labor shortage? Is it hard for you to find people? Are you struggling with this?
It's hard to find people outside of the mortgage area, which suddenly has become one in which there are a lot of job applicants. So yeah, our turnover is low, which is the only way that we could really make do in this market. Our turnover this year is the lowest in the 6 years I've been CEO, and thankfully that means that we don't have a lot of open unfilled positions, but it's not uncommon for a position to remain unfilled for many months, one that we might have filled in weeks in the past.
So when you're doing that and you're filling this group, do you think it's because there's a lack of people to fill the jobs, or there's a lack of initiative, like people don't want to fill the jobs, people are not going back into the workforce? Have you done any exploring, or is anybody exploring on that in regards to your market?
Well, it's obviously some of both. The fact is that unemployment, and we all know unemployment is very low, 3.6, and 3.8 million people are not working today, according to the Labor Department, I believe, whoever the experts are, because they either have long COVID or they're taking care of somebody who has long COVID. A lot of older people have retired early for a host of reasons, mostly pandemic related. So the labor force participation's down. I mean, I'm just quoting national numbers, right? But,
Oh yeah, no, and I completely have seen that. I mean, we had there are more jobs than there are people to fill them, and that's a weird market.
Yeah.
So we just have one question, then I want to flip over to Scott because he was going to quickly discuss this. But there was a question from one of the participants who wanted to know what your, I believe, turnover rate was. Can you share what trying to gauge what others are seeing? We're about 25% annually.
Yeah, by the way, turnover isn't like ROA. There is no common metric as to what is turnover. And I'll give you an example. The turnover we use here is more expansive than I believe most credit unions use, and yet it's we're still excluding some people who leave from our turnover statistic. I exclude people who pass away, sadly. We don't have a lot, but we've had some deaths. I exclude longtime employees who retire, and I exclude short-term interns. So sometimes we'll bring somebody in for the summer, and we don't include that as turnover. And so by that broad metric, our turnover is in the last 6 years has fallen from 28% to 11%. And it's been falling for each year over the last 6 years, with the exception of 2021, when we had a brief blip up. But this year we're back to making new lows.
Interesting. Yeah. What about the incarcerated? Do you include them? I know that's a big number for you, so I just wanted to. The incarcerated and the missing. Yeah. What do you do with that? No, I think that's a great point. I think that to see that fall, and also our Creighton's feeling this, because and I want to get to Scott here, and I want to Gary Coates, who I know some of their situation out in Wana, but yeah. So as always, Alan has done a tremendous job of managing his organization, and as a result, but he always has good perspective on this, and certainly is feeling it. And the Arizona market is,
Thank you.
It's so hot that I would think that people are just, either melting. What do you do about people that melted? I imagine that you don't
Count them. Yeah.
Yeah, you
Today's
have
a
to count
cool
them.
day. It's only 111. So
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
11. Oh,
Oh.
what do you know?
Take you extra few minutes to fry that egg on the sidewalk. Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to take more time to fry.
Yeah.
Scott, you wanted to jump in here. Go ahead, and then I'd
Yeah.
like to jump to Gary too. I know they've had and here's another interesting thing that I'm seeing at Gary's place, and I don't know if others are seeing this, is people who are leaving and returning. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But go ahead, Scott.
I know I got a couple people from Georgia on the call here, but we have a fair number of employers in the area that support the financial industry. So even though Fiserv isn't based here, we have several thousand employees in FIS and Jack Henry and all those. We also have a lot of payment processors based in Georgia. And so at some point, somebody did a survey and discovered we had like 1,800 jobs in Metro Atlanta for jobs that we couldn't fill for companies, fintech companies. And the state of Georgia started the FinTech Academy, and that is part of the university system of the state. So we have 26, 27 universities here. And the idea was that we're going to start creating courses and curricula that support developing the workforce that we all need to run our businesses. And so that's been going for a couple of years now. I believe all the universities have the ability to do online learning. Georgia State, Georgia Tech tend to have some in-person classes. But I thought it was interesting that the state recognized that we have an important need to fill people that could work for financial technology organizations, and credit unions are absolutely would fall into that as well. Daniel, let's see, Robert, I see you're on the line. And Glenn's an expert on this too. What else should the group know about the FinTech Academy?
Yeah, I think it's a great pipeline for students to both learn and get educated on, I guess, first steps into finding opportunities. Tommy Marshall's put a great program in place where connecting different companies and bringing them in on almost a week. I feel like it's a weekly basis, but at least monthly, where they'll come and present various different topics to first-time individuals, and then finding a way to match them up to first-time jobs as well as secondary and more experienced jobs. So it's become an incredible pipeline to not just fill jobs, but educate people from undergrad up to grad student roles to how to focus in on FinTech specifically, and what it takes to upskill to get there.
I joined late, so I'm not sure if I'm repeating anything, but just kind of repeating or kind of building on what Red said. I think during the main academic year, I think it's at least weekly, if not or biweekly. It's definitely more frequent, but those are great sessions. The other thing, if you haven't covered it, is the experiential learning. I know some of the players in the space have gotten involved in laying out projects, and it becomes kind of a final project for these classes. The teams will get together and then present their solutions. And I think in a few cases, those have led to internships or even full-time roles.
Hey, Glenn, I was thinking Scott would be a great sponsor, and I'm serious about this for our new podcast that we've been developing, which is called FinTech Stuff You Should Know. And we were actually going to do I kid you not, we were going to do deep dives on ACH, its history, how it works, how checks work, how credit cards work, how the payment system works. There's so much. And it's piggybacking off a great Atlanta, well-known podcast, the Stuff You Should Know. But we think that could be really valuable for people because they just, also consumers, not just, employees. Go ahead, Alan. I saw you on pause.
No, that'd be so awesome. I love that podcast, Stuff You Should Know.
Yeah. So I was thinking that, Glenn would be Josh and I could be Chuck. And for those of you that know the podcast, but we literally are looking for some sponsorships to get that rolling. We're going to do, deep dives on all of those things and the FinTech Academy would be a great sponsor because we think people need to know that. Even people who are already in banking could be, hey, I don't understand ACH and, I'd like to learn more about it. Even if you work at the credit union, we're thinking it could be a good resource. So.
And the ACH piece is a natural, given that it actually has its roots in the Atlanta marketplace too.
I want to do fraud. I want to do so many things. ATMs, a deep dive on ATMs, and I want to get into the minutia of it that people like when they started, the history, make it interesting. So, but anyways, I digress. Labor shortage coming back.
Well, my other goal on that, just so you know, is to keep John from getting sued. So we may change the name. But other than that,
yeah, I think Chuck and Josh will be okay with it, but that's just me. But it sounds like there's a lot of support for that. So yeah, I told you, Glenn. Anyways, moving over to Gary. So Gary, I've seen two phenomena at your credit union. I've seen people leaving, and then I've seen people coming back, which has kind of caused a problem because, you reinstate their accounts. You've already moved them over. It's like a little bit of an issue at times. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, so we've been seeing some of our branches are in smaller communities, and so the pool of applicants are harder to come by, especially with gas being so expensive now. People don't want to commute. If they have to be at a branch and they're not able to work from home. So yeah, we've been recruiting people that have left in the past. A couple of them that came back weren't here for very long and then they left again. So they're getting an offer from another company for just a little bit more money, and there's no reason for them not to leave. But then we would go through these people that had left in other positions, and we try to re-recruit them because we need people. So it's just a constant churn. I don't know what the current percentage is, but
it's enough that I've noticed it in just working with you.
Right.
You know?
And it is a pain because, like you said, you shut their account down and then you can't just reestablish it. There's a bunch of setup that you have to do to get them reset back up, especially for email and that type of thing. And so we've stubbed our toes several times learning that process. I think we have it down now, but when it was first happening, it was a problem because then they'd go a week without having access to everything that they needed.
Yeah, well, it took time to reinstate it because you would have one of the common protocols for credit unions for people that leave is to delegate their mail to someone else.
Correct.
And believe it or not, that's not easy to undo.
Correct.
To reverse that back, it takes a little work. I picture when you go back to get these people, has anybody seen the what was it? What's the trading company with the little kids as their things? E-Trade. I picture Harry, blowing in, and their poor people sitting out in the front of their lake house, and Gary shows up with his helicopter. It says, blah blah blah. So, fascinating stuff.
Are we talking, Gary? I'm just curious. Are we talking about frontline people, or are we talking about IT, or both?
IT, thankfully, I've not had turnover. The two people that I added last year are still with me. As busy as we are, I'm hoping that it stays that way. I actually need to try and add some more people because of the volume of stuff that we're having to deal with. But
yeah, that's why we're working with Gary, is we're kind of filling in as he's been hard to find some IT people out that way.
Right.
So it's interesting in terms of frontline staff. So there's still, one of the things I thought might have improved a little bit was, you're looking to actually staff branches and people on site as opposed to some kind of an ability to work remotely on the contact center or whatnot. So
right,
you can't, the gas is an issue, the distance, the radius that you can recruit from, that really hasn't changed.
No, and we're fairly rural. We're on the Oregon coast mostly. And so we can't pull from Portland. One of our branches in Astoria. That's a 2-hour drive from Portland. No one's going to do that for a teller position or
Right.
even
Right.
for a manager position. So our pool of applicants are smaller because we're serving smaller communities. The good thing is a lot of people know a lot of people in the smaller communities. And so instead of waiting for people to apply, managers are actively recruiting people. And that's where we've seen this rise in former people that had left are coming back. But some of them aren't staying, and I'm not sure why. But
But I'm hearing also that branch traffic hasn't, at least in those kind of locations, has not died down. So it's not like you can avoid backfill. Obviously, need 1 or 2 people at a branch, but you can't backfill it with a central location where they're providing contact center, whether by phone or chat or whatever.
right.
Well, and I love what George is doing, and I'm wondering, like, how do we propagate that to other states like Oregon or Washington? I think that's interesting stuff. Hey, Odie, I know
Hey, what's up?
you do a lot of hiring, but a lot of people don't know that you are also a board member, current chair, I believe, correct?
Correct. Current chair of South Bay Credit Union.
Of South Bay Credit Union, yeah. So, in your capacity as that, what are you seeing?
Well, we had a problem with turnover during the pandemic, a little pre-pandemic, and during the pandemic, something to the tune of like north 50%. Was a problem, and it didn't actually make it up to the board level. Like I wasn't even aware of it, right? Because I don't go into the branches, right? And so I had no earthly idea. And we hired a new CEO, came in last October. And one of the first things I told her is, once she pointed this out to us, is we got to fix this right now. So we proactively bumped salaries in an average of 10%. So a decent bump. And not the executive team, but everybody else across the board. We bumped them all up. And then as the pandemic's lessened, turnover is like, we've had the same staff since November. We haven't lost a single person. So now we're actually at a point where we have too many people, right? We keep becoming more efficient, but we're not losing any people. So we have kind of the opposite problem, but I think it's due to 2 factors. One is proactively increasing salary. And you got to get board buy-in on that, right? Because that's going to affect the CEO's compensation and your numbers. And since I'm the board chairman and I told her to do it, then I guess it's not going to negatively affect her compensation. And
Sure.
And then the pandemic, I think we've seen some of the turnover wane post-pandemic. And I'm in Los Angeles, for those of you who don't know. Los Angeles is a fairly big market in Southern California.
Yeah, a huge market in Southern California. I was going to mention, give a little background.
And I'm curious, Chris, or anybody else who's responsible and has the visibility into their credit unions. You mentioned the 50% turnover, which sounds just enormous.
Oh, ours is horrible.
What does that compare to on a run rate basis when you're talking about a teller population? I just harken back to the days when I was at Check Free and it was a call center. It wasn't actual frontline in person to person. But I remembered seeing numbers in the 30s and I thought, oh my gosh. And they said, no, you don't get it. That's actually pretty good. So I'm just kind of curious, what do you typically, what does everybody consider a reasonable teller turnover rate to be?
That's a great question. I don't know what's considered reasonable. I can tell you that those are, light bulb jobs, right? They're like being a customer support rep. You plug somebody in it until they burn out, and then you're replacing with somebody else. Unfortunately, that's the nature of frontline staff.
You know that incandescent light bulbs have been outlawed. These LEDs last forever. Just, you're gonna need some people aren't going to understand your metaphor. I saw Alan pop up. He's going to tell us. I was going to interrupt him. Again. It was like, I was going to tell him to put his lunch down.
Well, we hired a consultant, I think it was Cornerstone, and for our asset size, the benchmark was, I think, 25%. So that's organization wide. I know at True West, our branch turnover rate is lower than our back office.
Really? That's surprising.
Yeah, we've got people who have made a career, work decades in the branch system, including in non-management roles.
Wow.
Usually
I-
it's the opposite. You got dudes
Yeah.
with cobwebs on them in the back office. You got to go and dust them once in a while.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not saying that it's significantly lower in the branches. It's basically quite similar,
Hmm.
maybe slightly lower.
I think this is such a good discussion to have because it's kind of across the board, with respect to everyone sort of experiencing this, and there's a lot of different options to sort of go about it. One of them is the retention policy, like Chris was saying about sort of giving people raises before they ask. That I'm finding as I've talked to other people like who are looking for jobs, that's like a big, if you're going to create loyalty, that seems to be a big one. Interestingly enough, too, I talked to a Creighton the other day, Alan, who whenever they give those kinds of bonuses or whatever, they only put them in the credit union account. They won't put them anywhere else. And that was interesting because it upped
Yeah.
everybody's usage of the digital platform, but that's a whole nother discussion. So
Yeah.
Mike Lawson, you mentioned you were talking to some recruiters about this.
Yeah. Yeah, we have one actually. I see Carl, who's attending here. Carl from Humanity in O'Rourke, which is the company that Jill Nowacki started, and they're a recruiter, and they see all sorts of things. Carl, if you want to come in, chime in and contribute at all or participate, that'd be kind of cool.
Absolutely. So can you hear me okay? I'm using
Yep.
my AirPod earbuds for the first time on a Zoom call. So
We're good. Great.
from a turnover perspective, I really don't have a lot to add in that regard. But from the talent acquisition perspective, one of the things that I've noticed in this war for talent, as we like to talk about at Humanity and O'Rourke, is this expectation almost that candidates have to have the opportunity to work either fully remotely or in a hybrid arrangement. A lot of candidates, I sound like a dinosaur. Back in my day, when I looked for a job, the first thing I wanted to know was, what does it pay? Well, these days, job seekers want to know, is the job remote? And if the answer is no,
Is that like
is the
the
job
first
hybrid?
question? Is that the first question you think? Very first question?
That's one of the first questions that I get with a lot of roles. And our firm specializes in senior and executive leadership positions. So we're not hiring for tellers. We're not hiring for teller managers, but you're talking about CEOs, anything C-suite, VPs and directors and above. And a lot of these job seekers want to know, is this job remote? And if it's not remote, they want to know, is it hybrid? And if it's not hybrid, they don't hang up the phone on you, but sometimes they stop responding to the email, the back and forth or the LinkedIn messaging. And I don't know what the solution is to that necessarily, but when we meet with clients about jobs they are looking to hire for, one of the first things that we ask them is, what is your appetite for remote work or for hybrid work arrangements? I don't think you can be a CEO and work remotely yet, but I've seen CFO candidates, CMO candidates, CIO candidates all come to the table. And one of the first things they want to talk about is a remote or a hybrid work arrangement. And
God, that high up.
some
huh?
credit unions are more open to that and others aren't. Yes.
I'll tell you, for technology positions, I'm seeing that more and more. The people I'm engaging with, I just sort of assume they're somewhere, nearby the Creighton, and find out, oh no, I'm in Cincinnati, and they're people I know who have, taken up those jobs. Plus, I don't think Alan's been in the office since March of 2020, if I'm right. That's just a fake background of his desk he had his assistant take.
Actually, I am in today.
No, you're always. I'm joking. As far as I know, he's always in. So
No, but I'll be working from home tomorrow.
no, I think that hybrid piece. But Alan, this is a great question. Tanya brings up the fact that Tanya Holland in the quote in the thing here talks about what constraints are we putting in. Do you have a nepotism constraint?
No,
Okay.
we actually eliminated that when I became CEO. I think our experience has been that what's the cliche? The seed doesn't fall too far from the tree or something.
Yeah, it's how do you find your next best employee? Hire their family and friends.
Yeah.
Your current best employee. Yeah.
Yeah, but if I can just reiterate, yeah, we have a lot of flexibility. We actually had, last summer, we had focus groups around the credit union. Every leader working or meeting with our direct reports. So in our credit union, that was 40, 50 individual meetings. And from the corner office, I basically told the leaders they're responsible for, three things: their team's productivity and their ability to measure that and demonstrate it, that their turnover was low, and that their team exhibited a passion for our mission and vision. And we do annual surveys around that. And how they accomplish that, whether the people are in the office 5 days a week or working from home 5 days a week, I don't care. All I care about is those three things. And each of our teams do something different. We got people who do sprint cycles, who come into the office for 5 consecutive days and then work from home 2 weeks in a row. We got people who are hybrid, people who are 100% remote. But as long as they continue to maintain productivity, low turnover, and a passion for our mission and vision, I'm happy.
They could be in the back of a caboose on the train and you're okay.
Well, we have the White Mountains. I'm familiar with Arizona. It's the most remote part of the state.
Yep.
And many times I'd tell leaders, I don't care if your team's working in caves in the White Mountain. As long as they're productive, their turnover is low, and they got a passion for what we do as a credit union.
Well, it sounds like just something occurred to me. So, Alan, you would be able to you could take advantage of the FinTech Academy in Georgia if you were looking for, say, new talent because of your policies. And so, it doesn't lack that constraint, or someone like Carl, who is bringing in those sorts of groups. I find that, I think that's, and by the way, the CIOs and CTOs who I've seen that I just myself, and I don't often tell this story, but when I took a job at Westcom, I was living in Florida, and when Rob tried to hire me, this is Rob Guilford, just a fantastic individual, and Darren Williams, just an incredible credit union. He said, hey, we'd like to think about bringing you on. And I said, dude, I'm never moving to California. My wife won't have it. Our kids are in school. We're just not doing it. And he said, that's good, because we don't want you to move. And I said, well, I thought you guys liked me. And he said, no, it's not that. I mean, you do smell a little, but he said, it actually works out to have people in different time zones to some extent in the IT business. And, you're probably experiencing that now, Alan, as with Texas. The time zone thing is an interesting thing. But, our team, and we started an IT team in Florida, and we could do things at 4 a.m, which was just 7 our time, that, would be a lot of overtime and a lot of issue for other local employees. And so, and for 12 years, I worked at Westcom for Mr. Kevin Sarber, who is the next speaker I'm going to tee up here. And I never, ever lived in California. And maybe he can speak to that, but I felt like I was pretty effective. I mean, he didn't fire me or nothing that I can remember. I don't know, Kevin, what you've been looking into this in the California area. Kevin, you want to speak to that a little?
Sure. And yeah, I think one of the things we established quickly after you joined Westcom was that we were going to go out and hire the best people we could find, no matter where they were. We didn't care about the location. We got great support from HR after the shock hit, because they were worried about how do we put benefits and those type of things for remote workers. So, there were some challenges that we didn't anticipate, but overall, it was a great policy for us. Going back to kind of the earlier conversation, John and I were with a CEO of a fairly large credit union in Southern California yesterday, and they've become really aggressive over their strategic plan over the last 5 years has been to get the minimum wage for all full-time credit union employees to be $25 an hour. And, while that's somewhat shocking, it's helped them immensely with their retention and recruiting. And, the staff loves it. That kind of passes through to the members. You're able to keep higher level employees happy for a longer period of time.
Well, it's Kevin, and it was interesting because he repeated something that one of my favorite things, and I feel like I'm just kissing Alan's butt, but it's true. That Alan said is, we're all in business to do really one thing, and that is to triple the size of our business without doubling the size of our staff. And he said, he wants a Delta Force and not an army. He'd rather have, better trained people. And Carl, I'm certain that sort of speaks to what you're seeing in the market. So compensation, that is an interesting thing, because if you're really in a high competition area, what can you do for that? And then later on, and Kevin, we didn't have to do this as much, but I know what was done on the other side of the equation, which is I forget what they used, but like, what's the profit of each individual teller versus the cost of it from a service perspective that we then compared to the electronic services. But we never factored in sales. And that was another big issue. Was I wonder if people would start to think about sales. It's always been a dirty word in the Canadian space, but I know Canadians like Ent that compensate based on the number of credit cards and things that they cross sell. And my sister-in-law who worked there a long time would get an extra 3, 4, or 5, and she's good at it. They probably left, with credit cards, coming out of their pockets.
She had 8 credit cards, but
yeah. I mean, Carl, I know you're kind of dealing with the larger people, but and even Odie, who's chairman of the board. I mean, is that a conversation also besides the nepotism and the other constraints that we put on? Is because one of the things I was always told when I first started at Crayons, and I won't name it, was, well, John, we're a not-for-profit. And I'm saying, yeah, but I kind of am for profit, at least in my own life. I mean, I like what we do here, but John's not. I think not-for-profit doesn't mean not for salary, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'll throw that out there as a talking point. Maybe Kevin, you can jump on it, and we'll pass it on to maybe Chris Odie or somebody, or Alan again. No margin, no mission. I like that. Scott just said something cool. He always says cool stuff, though.
So true.
I like that too.
Yeah, that's Kevin has always been the margin guy. So, but what he did tell us was he wanted a Delta Force, not an army. And I think there's something to be said for that, because if you're going to have that passion, the culture is much harder to propagate the more people you have. And then it begins to splinter amongst the groups that are in the areas. And one of the things I think that Zoom and other these things have allowed us to do is to keep to propagate culture more easily by being visible in things like this, and that we didn't have before. That really wasn't something. We've tried it, but it really wasn't something that was out there. Let's see who else we got. I'm going to jump on somebody and make them talk some more.
Are credit unions bouncing on a lot of the fintechs who are laying off people and downsizing and stuff like that? I mean, I know it might be kind of early for that because we're just seeing a lot of that in the news lately, but I'm wondering if credit unions are open to kind of getting on those people and bringing them inside.
Go ahead, Alan.
I'm wondering how much that ties to skill set too. Alan, please go ahead.
Oh, well, I'm going to steer the conversation a little different. So, okay. I'll go ahead. It's been a lot of conversation around compensation, which is really important. You absolutely have table stakes to pay people fairly, and to give people a living wage is important for a host of reasons, including just sort of the credit union philosophy. But to me, the most important thing for retention has nothing to do with pay. And we all experience it, I think, in our own lives. It's having a good leader. When you think about what it was like to work for the worst boss you ever had, and unfortunately, I think we've all had one of those.
Kevin's right here with us. He can hear you. So just so you know. Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, your day was miserable and the team environment was toxic, and you drug yourself to work dreading it. And at the end of the day, you wanted to figuratively kick the dog. It was just a toxic environment. And then you think about the best boss you ever had, somebody who truly cared about you as a person, who built you up professionally, who mentored you, that 10% pay, 20% pay isn't going to
drag you away. Yeah.
And in fact, you're not even going to be looking. So even if the competition is paying 20% more, you're not even going to be looking, because you're going to enjoy your job so much. If people feel at work that they're doing work that's meaningful, in an uplifting environment, what they do makes a difference, then when they go home at the end of the day, they're going to have a light step and they're going to bring that into their home environment. I think that the most important thing is having good leaders. And there's a lot we as leaders at a credit union can do to make that happen. Here at True West, we've got an employee training department, as most credit unions do, and they have a leadership university coursework. We brought in outside speakers like Antonio Neves and Don Ream, and we hold leaders accountable. We hold them accountable for the passion that their team members have. As I said, we survey that. We hold them accountable for communication and recognition of their staff when they do something right, not just when they do something wrong. We hold them accountable for turnover. All these things are built into leaders' performance reviews. And that means that we like to think, the best boss that our people ever had. And that is that is worth more than 20% pay, hands down.
Oh, absolutely. And that culture, I think, also extends to family, and good leaders know how to balance that work-life balance and still get the job done. I think that's very true.
Yeah.
So that leads me to an interesting concept. If I were you and I was hiring in the leadership space, mostly you probably promote from within if I had to guess, but if I was hiring from the leadership space and someone like Carl, I want to know if the leader was in the previous, you don't get to be up in that area and not have some previous experience with it. Do you have stats like, hey, what was this guy's turnover rate in his previous job? Like, should we be looking at stuff like that? That's pretty interesting concept from a cultural standpoint.
Yeah, we do, like most folks, we do personality surveys and all that, but yeah, you're always taking a chance when you bring in somebody from the outside. And I think some folks from the outside are like the salt you need in the bread, but you want most of the jobs to be internal promotions, in part because that builds that culture of career opportunity.
So I'm gonna take it. I love that, Alan. Thank you. And by the way, I've experienced the culture of his organization. It is fantastic, and that's why I keep calling on him and bugging him. So he's just gonna have to live with that. Sorry, Alan. You keep showing up, this is what's gonna happen. But the idea that what are we not doing because of the labor shortage? How is this impacting us? What things would we be doing? Are we losing out on growth? Are we losing out on because we don't have particular skill sets? Are we getting behind in other areas? I'd just be interested in hearing from anyone. By the way, Cody gave you 10 claps, which coming from Cody, that's strong praise, my friend. Strong praise, because he's a great guy. But coming back around to what I was just asking, what are we not doing because of the labor shortage? How is it impacting us? And maybe I'll throw it, because I know Alan probably wants to take a quick break. I'll throw it at Odie here for a minute from the chairman's perspective, and then maybe anybody else that wants to chime in regarding that, you maybe pop in the chat and I'll get you up there next. Chris?
I think Chris had to go.
What? Chris had to go?
I think so.
That loser. He's a loser. Yeah. So now we have to go back to Alan. But I don't think Alan's my problem with Alan is I don't think
Alan, you're the guest of honor today.
Yeah, I don't think he's not doing anything that he wants to do. So I'll ask James. James would be a great person, a much smaller credit union, great leader, by the way. I think he would fall into your categories of passionate, and I like James a lot. Smaller credit union out in Wyoming. James, go ahead.
Oh, James, yeah.
Mr. Yates. I'm gonna unmute him. Let's see if he can unmute there. I'll give him a second here. No, he might be. Oh, there he goes.
There he goes.
Go ahead, James.
We haven't had much turnover here at the credit union, partially because of the reasons that Alan talked about. Is we try to be a good place to work, and so we haven't had a lot of people leave. And it's for a much smaller market here, so we don't have the competition for with larger companies. But it's tight for other places. I know there's one credit union that's down. They're probably down 30% of their staff right now, and they're having trouble replacing them.
And so I would think that would impact growth ultimately.
Yeah, I think it's cutting back on the projects that they can do, and it's a lot of back office people that they can't replace. And they're not doing a lot of remote work. I think they're changing that, but I think they're going to have to attract, quality people.
I don't disagree. I think that there's I think I know which credit union you're talking about. I don't want to bring it up, but I think I know which one out in Wyoming you're talking about. And yeah, the other thing that's interesting is, if I'm right, if we're thinking about the same credit union, that's also in a university town, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
So that's fascinating to me too, is because traditionally we've a lot of credit unions have made good relationships with local universities to bring in talent. I know, for example, Royal and the University of Wisconsin. So it's fascinating to me that we normally can be sort of like, hey, we're one of the better jobs you can get coming out of college, and to see that is also concerning as well.
And I don't think they're getting the students that they would get to work for them too. So, a lot of people are staying on the front line and not moving to the back office because they can't rely on the college students just aren't working as much as they did when I was in college.
Yeah. Well, we'll have a whole other episode on millennial losers. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's partially the Hathaway scholarship here too. They don't have to work.
No, I know. And actually, all my kids are millennials and they're not losers. I'm just kidding. I was joking. I was going to write a book called "Shut Up and Get Back to Work," but I think it's one of those things where the culture shift. Have we changed with the culture shift? And so, if the first question that Carl gets from all the executives is this a hybrid or work at home job, are we being hurt by our branches in that all of these are in-person jobs? And should we be shifting to video calls and teller and big call centers full of people that do things via phone? And is that the way to attract? And is that a more profitable experience? Or, it comes back to that branches versus virtual. And I don't want to get too deeply into that, but certainly it seems like it has some bearing.
It's kind of a lower bound. I'm just thinking that if you're going to keep a branch open, you kind of have to have two people or you got a security issue. So if you believe that you need the branch open, you're always going to have some level of staffing, right?
Yeah, I agree. And it's funny because you and I were talking today, and this is going to be an episode that's coming in the future. I have a strategy for everyone, and Alan, you could be the first. And James, I'll come out and help you. We're just going to drive around. You and I, James, we'll go down to Chugwater. And I drove through Chugwater, and so did Melissa, my the executive producer of this pod thing, and also my executive assistant. And we noticed that there are 3 payday lenders in every one of these small towns. But I've also noticed that right next to those payday lenders, where they go in the storefronts, there's always an open storefront. So here's what I want you to do. You don't have to do much. You just rent that storefront. You put 2 desks in there, 2 chairs, because you'll be right in line with the payday lender. You hang out front. You get them lawn chairs and you grill. We're going to get you a Traeger grill. It's going to smell delicious. Everybody that goes to the payday lender, they'll come over to you first. You give them a free steak and then have them come in. We're calling it, what were we calling it, Sarvati? The Sarvati Initiative? I forget. It was something like that. But it's a good way to, I think that's like more work. I'm going to close it with an idea. I like to give out ideas. And this is something I've said before, but I'm going to bring it up again. There is a great place, I think, to recruit. And I'm going to share how I've done it in the past and how you might want to do it. Kevin did it this way too. We realized early on that, people who are passionate about things tend to go places and meet people. And those are the kind of people we want. So who's ever heard of Meetup? And so a Meetup is a good example. I'm going to go ahead and go to the Meetup site here and show it to you. So what Meetups are, there's a site called Meetup where it's anything you could ever think of. Like if you've got a passion for, I don't know, cooking Taiwanese food, and you want to meet 10 other people that cook Taiwanese food, even in a small town or virtually, you can go to a Meetup and you can find 10 other people that want to do that meet on a regular basis and talk about it. And, this is an example, one of the many sites that does this sort of thing. But here's the thing, when you go look at this, they often are looking for places to meet. I feel like a lot of Creighton's have good, awesome, like, places that aren't being used anymore. They have space because they've gone to this work at home. There are tons of groups. You could start your own group. You could start a fintech group and just have people go out and do this. But you got to be careful. It's not recruiting, but what you're doing is you're going out and just finding people. If you're looking in the tech space, or if you're looking in programming, or if you're looking for AI, I guarantee you that you can go out, and I think there's a find an event here. I'm just going to go in and do this. Let's say, you want to find people who are working in, artificial, if I can spell it, intelligence. I think to use it, artificial intelligence, you have to be able to spell it. And I could put in a location. I'll just put Scottsdale, Arizona, and do a search. And there you go. There's all kinds of different things for different people to go and show up. There's even things like this to show up on. It's not that you go and you try to take it over. It's just you go and you see who shows up. And I think you should encourage your people to go out and get involved with these community events, because I think it's a good place to find people who have interest in the various things you're doing. I think there's a lot of online communities where we're missing the boat because we don't understand them. There could be, I almost used the word infiltrated, but that sounds a little cultish. But that we could go in and learn from, and your people would enjoy. And I guess my last question is this: who pays employees who refer other employees? Because that seems like that's how I would get them to go to the meetups. Is that, Alan, you do that? How much do I make if I refer an employee? And how long do they have to stay there? Like 20 years before I get it, or do I get recurring revenue for how long they stay? I think it's a Ponzi scheme.
I think it is 90 days, and we've had we've varied it over time. I think it's $500 right now.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's
cool. I like
that's
that.
very good. James, I know James gives them each a peppermint candy, and they also get one movie that they can go to with James, but it has to be something he enjoys. So
Yeah, Pam gives $200 for most
Cheyenne Day
positions.
off. So
how much is it, James?
See, Pam?
$200?
Yeah, $200 for most positions, $500 for management level. That's
That's
sweet.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's been a lot said here, and we just wanted to cover this topic. It's been asked. Pam Martin, we do 90 days, $200 for most positions. Oh, you just read that. Sorry.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for Crayons to be there's no reason why we shouldn't be winning in this game, because we're such a great place to work. I think we're the best kept secret there is. So, Carl, I just ask you real quick, do you ever go out to these meetups, or like the FinTech Academy should have meetups in every state? That should be a place to go, Scott. I know you're writing this down, but
I got you.
Go ahead, Carl.
Well, I was just going to say I have not attended any meetups, but I spend an absurd amount of time on LinkedIn, an embarrassing amount of time on LinkedIn, and I look for groups. And there are a lot of different groups that you can find on LinkedIn that I think kind of serve a similar purpose to the meetup. But I'm a people person. I'm an extrovert's extrovert. So the idea of actually going out and meeting, like connecting physically with other humans, is very appealing to me. So I'm going to check out Meetup and see what I can find in and around the greater Charlotte area, because it's gotten lonely working here in the house all day. I mean, I love my wife. I love our dog, but I'd love to go and meet.
I got a question for you, Carl. Is it?
Yeah, thank you for making that suggestion.
Should I be concerned if my wife has been pouring like a cement slab outside? I'm worried about what she hadn't told me what the pad's for, but I know it's deep enough to put me in. I have a similar issue. I think getting out.
Everybody's picked up some
new skills.
Everybody's picked up some new hobbies during the pandemic. Absolutely.
Well, I want to just one more time. Do we have the FinTech Academy website or whatever that is? Let's make sure we get that in the loop, because I think that's really valuable and incredible. It's a good opportunity to. They feel like they'd be good sponsors. I'm just saying, Glenn.
It's GeorgiaFinTechAcademy.org, isn't it, Scott?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we had them on the show a while ago. Yeah.
Wow, if Mike remembers you've done something right, because he emails 62,000 people.
We had him on.
62,000 people a day. So If you remember,
People just went on.
yeah, he's interviewing 2 people as we speak, and you just don't know it.
Exactly. I got one right after this.
Well, listen, I can't thank I love when people
Yeah.
get involved here. Be hearing Pam Martin, Tanya, everybody. Thank you so much. This was a great discussion. If you know people that haven't attended, let them know that we post these. I think we post them on your site, Mike, and we post them on our site.
Yep.
So, and Glenn, I think Glenn's site is my site. So, and Scott, you're welcome to propagate these as much as you want. I think it's a lot of good discussion. Scott, did you have a final point?
No, I was talking about this forum just about 2 hours ago. So I think it's a great thing that we're doing collectively here, and no strong agendas other than to make us each other better. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Speaking of agendas, it's going to be a little weird next week. So Chris Skinner's coming in. For those of you that don't know Chris, he's fantastic.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Well,
Chris is in, what's that?
It's not until August 10th.
Oh, August
not
10th. I'm
next-
sorry.
Yep,
It's the
Yep,
next
it's
one.
not next
though.
time. Yep, it's the
It's
one.
next-
No, it's the next one after the
Next
next
month.
one.
Okay. So I just want to let everybody know there's a schedule change for this one because he's in Warsaw. I was talking to him the other day, and Warsaw, Poland is right next to the Ukraine.
Yep.
So, it's going to be interesting to get some perspective from him. Jim, I know you won't want to miss this. But yeah, definitely. Thanks. And we'll see you next time. We're definitely going to talk payday lending. I'm going to get deeply into that. I've decided it's my passion project for this year is to get everybody to open up a store right next to every payday lender. And somehow because I'm finding that I think that's our problem. We could offer all the products we got. We just have to have somebody there scoop it. And Glenn and I were talking about how Burger King chooses where to put their McDonald's or where they put their stores. They just wait for McDonald's to build across the street. So why can't we do the same thing with the pay lenders? Wherever they've picked, we just set up camp next door and make it super easy. It doesn't have to be any kind of big thing. Just open up next door and hang out outside, put lawn chairs outside with the net so you could scoop these guys up. You'd be doing the world a favor. All right, everyone. Thanks again. Thanks,
Thanks, John. I like the net idea. Good.
Yeah, big net, big butterfly net. Grab 'em. Drag them in. That's how I see it. Bye, everyone.